All right. Welcome, everyone. Please have a seat. We're going to get started. Welcome. I'm Cyril. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm part of the AI user group. I'm also managing this venue. Yeah, you can cheer me. I think you can cheer me. Yes, that's great. Feels good. It feels good, actually. I'm also managing this venue. We are an event space. We do events, all kind of events. So if you work in a company and you are looking for a venue, please talk to me. That's what we do, and we'll work on your event together. Talking about events, we have some events this week. So if you're interested in MCP, MCP everything, so it's going to be an event about MCP, how to implement MCP, how to optimize MCP. It's going to be tomorrow. It's going to be here. It's the AI Agent SF meetup, so please swing by if you're interested in MCP. It's starting at 5 p.m. We have another event this weekend. It's going to be on Saturday. It's a hackathon. So if you feel hacking this weekend, it's a very cool one. It's about context engineering, and instead of like regular demo, it's going to be about creating what they call useful agents. And you're going to be, the prize is going to be based on evaluations. So you're going to have a data set, and we'll see if your agent is good or not based on the data sets and the accuracy. So pretty interesting. It's on Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. It's going to be fun, and we're going to have also some talks as well, and some nice prize like NVIDIA hardware, stuff like that. So if you're into that, please swing by. And I missed one. I missed two, actually. Right, this is the one I wanted to show. If you're interested in this kind of events, please scan our agenda. We have a lot coming up. It's all about AI and how to implement AI and how to experiment with AI. So if you're interested into these kind of things, please join us. Also, we're going to do more events like that. So this meetup you're part of, it's called AI for Developers, and it's a community meetup, so we are looking for content. So if you are experimenting something cool and you want to share with the community, implementing AI, please let me know. You can just come and talk to me, and you can join me on the other side next time. Some logistics, at 8:50, we're going to be officially closed. We won't have a security guard for you, so we'll need to exit the building by 9. So keep that in mind. If not, I'm going to kick you out. Okay, so that's the agenda for today. So we're going to start with Shipra with a talk about accelerating prototyping with AI-powered workflows. Then Hendrix is going to talk about context engineering for intelligent AI code review. And Kevin will talk about auth best practices for AI agents and MCP servers. Right after that, we have an open mic, so it's a tradition here. You join me on the other side if you have anything to announce or present to the community. Usually people use this time to mention if they are looking for, if they are hiring, if they are looking for a job, if they are looking for a co-founder, if they created something cool, if you're looking for beta testers for your next product, stuff like that. You can just come and you're going to have a minute to present to the community. And then it's going to be networking and pizza starting at 8, so stick around. All right, so let's get started with Shipra. Accelerating prototyping with AI-powered workflows. Yeah, we can cheer.
All right. Whoa, amazing. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. All right, I'm Shipra. I'm an engineer turned designer, living in a world where designers are turning back into engineers a little bit. So it's kind of full circle for me to be here talking about prototyping. I'm just curious if people here know Miro. Most everyone. Okay, if you don't know Miro, you'll see a little bit about what it is. I'll try and stay close to the mic. So when we talk about AI prototyping, I know a lot of us immediately think about vibe coding, right? Like that's what we think about when we say AI prototyping, but I feel like there's this emerging challenge with all these AI artifacts, whether it's docs or slides or vibe-coded prototypes. And the problem that I'm seeing in product and design teams is that there's a fidelity confidence mismatch, right? So it used to be that when we saw sketches, somebody bring us like little sketches of ideas, we know like this person has spent maybe a few minutes thinking about this idea, it's very early stage. Whereas if somebody brought in wires, we would know like, okay, maybe they've thought about it a little more, but it's not final. But by the time we saw code, we would be pretty confident that this team has thought through this product, and what we're seeing is very polished, and the type of feedback you get or give changes based on the fidelity of the work you're seeing. But with AI, I find like everything now is like super high fidelity and super high polished. Like all you see is like working code or like really high fidelity wires and prototypes, and kind of like sometimes that can be misleading. And I think we have to rewire our brains to kind of work in this space where there is a fidelity confidence mismatch, because really sometimes like coding is the easiest part, or prototyping is like writing the code is the easiest part of our job, but it's like really hard to know what you want to code, like to discuss with your team and come to an alignment agreement on what you're actually trying to build. So when people are prototyping, I always remind them there's two reasons to prototype. And I always ask them, are you prototyping for delivery, right? This is when you're prototyping something that you want to like send out to the customer. It's very polished, it's very thought through. Or are you prototyping for alignment? So are you still in this phase of exploring? You're in early stages of the product, of your project, and you're in this discovery defined, like this early stage, and you want to prototype maybe multiple ideas, and you're trying to get agreement on the direction. So today, what I want to show you is sort of related to prototyping for alignment and how we're getting pretty good at using AI on the delivery side, but how you can use AI in these earlier stages, especially if, I assume there's a lot of engineers in the room. I think it's becoming more and more like sort of roles are blending, isn't it? Like product managers are designing, designers are coding, like engineers are doing everything. Like I think all of us need to have like a framework and methods to carry our teams through this early stages of product definition, so that by the time we start coding, we're all aligned on what we want to code. And ideally, that's because, I think building something good requires taste, judgment, it requires wisdom, insight from your entire team. At Miro, we call this team intelligence, right? Like you want your entire team's perspectives, and then we can use AI to speed up getting to those artifacts that allow your team to come to alignment. So we want to use AI to create visuals that allow your team to come together. So I'm going to show you this in a demo. This is going to be mostly a demo of like a made-up team, but like something that I'm seeing when I look at how big corporations are using Miro in their product development lifecycle. So I'll walk through this pretend team, this team that's like trying to make a new Venmo, right? Let's just assume they're trying to solve sending small amounts of money to your friends or family. And I'm going to go through how they can use Miro, or they can use Miro through these early stages of discovery and definition. So I'll show you research sense making, so early stage customer discovery and how you can bring that input in and use AI to help with sense making, how human ideation can be enhanced by AI, prototyping, and many of you, if you've used Miro, you probably haven't seen some of our prototyping tools. They're really cool, I think. So I want to show you how you can prototype, get critiqued, and then finally we'll look into MCPs and how you can take your stuff from Miro into your vibe coding tools to make the most out of your vibe coding tool, which you're probably spending a lot of time in. So that's the flow. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, let's do it. I'm going to jump out of my presentation mode. Thanks, Brad. I love having my teammates in Miro. So to help me like move along. Yeah, okay, so we'll start with customer discovery. In the beginning of any project, it used to be that we would go out and talk to like 10, 15 customers, try and get a sense of what they need, like people are not doing that anymore. And you can use AI, of course, like I'm sure you can use like your deep research tools like Claude and whatnot, but those are so one-on-one, like you're just doing it alone, sitting at your desk. You need your team together. So here's a couple of ways you can do this in Miro, and teams love using mind maps in Miro. So let's just assume we're a team, we're trying to make Venmo better or build a better Venmo. Within Miro, I can start, I'm gonna like open up my AI panel. There's gonna be probably new things here, but I'm just gonna put in this really simple prompt, which is asking my AI panel to create a mind map with user needs for sending small amounts of money, let's say to friends or family. So this is probably like something you would put in ChatGPT, but you'd get like a really long bullet list of responses. Instead, I prefer to do this in a visual space where my team is with me. So here you can see I have my team, Brad and Nico with me. I'm gonna add this to the canvas. Let me move this down because I had a previous mind map made. So you can see like Miro's showing me like what it thinks people need from sending money to friends and family. They have security concerns. They want speed, but I can have my team in here. You can see Nico and Brad, they're dot voting on items that they think are important. They can add further nodes to the mind map. And then I can also like go back to the AI once my team has worked on it and we've kind of decided where we want to maybe focus. Let's say we don't care about this node, we can delete it. Once we know where we want to focus, I can also like go back to the AI. So for instance, let's say I want to learn more about group expense management. That's something we all have to deal with at restaurants. It's so awkward. I can just go ahead and ask the AI to expand this mind map with topics. So I can like bring the AI in as well as my team. And you can see here, all right, you can see here, it gives me more ideas of how it's important to do group expense management when you're thinking about peer-to-peer payments. Anyway, it's just an idea of like one way to bring research visually and bring your team in. Let's assume you have a survey here. I mean, it's the same thing. If you have a survey with customer feedback on what they want from your peer-to-peer payment system, I'm just copying the survey data here, bringing it into Miro. I just copied and pasted it. And then again, what I might do is bring my team in to look at this data together, but I'm gonna have the AI cluster it first. So again, by the time my team comes in, we're not looking at raw data, we're looking at some data that's already made sense, and maybe we decide, hey, we really care about solving for international transfers. That's gonna be our winning mode here. All right, so this looks like a mess. There's a lot of data. We've got dot votes. We've got, a lot of qualitative team discussions that might have gone into work like this. And a lot of us may actually have to convert our ideas into little linear docs that we can share out, right? And one of the things AI is really good at, I think, is converting the same information from one format to another. Like I know my roadmaps used to be like in Jira, in spreadsheets, in a PowerPoint, in a Word doc, and I don't want to be creating things, the same content in different formats anymore. Anyway, so that's something also that's a very common use case here, where if let's say I have all of this research that I did, and all of this research, and all of my team's dot votes and little squiggles, I can use all of that unstructured data as context to create a document. So here I'm going to ask Miro AI to create me a document, and you can see it says 159 objects selected. So I can write a really simple prompt, write a research summary report with the top 10 findings. But I'm not telling it what the research was about, what the data was. All I've done is selected that data on the canvas. And Miro's gonna be, the AI here is using the canvas as the context. not just the text on the canvas, but also the little squiggles, the dot votes, the stickers, the vote, the thumbs ups. It's going to use all of that as context to try to generate these top 10 ideas. And once it's done generating those in a document, my team will be able to then come in and edit those as well, because we all know AI's first generation is not always the best. But here you go. It kind of knows what I'm doing. It knows that I'm building a peer-to-peer money transfer app, and kind of has synthesized the top 10 findings based on what my team voted up as important as well. Right. And like I said, once it's here, my team can come in, and you can see they've already started to highlight, edit, and comment. So this is all the messy stuff before you get to the actual product. This is where hopefully you're having conversations, you're generating ideas, maybe you're putting those ideas into a 2x2, maybe you're generating a PRD, if you still write those. But I personally want to get to, once I have like a winning idea, want to get to a diagram. Sometimes I do user flows by hand. Sometimes I have AI start me off. And I'm not going to show you how I did this because, again, you can imagine you start with AI, it makes a diagram, and then your team can come in and edit it. The thing that I wanted to jump to next, in the interest of time, is actually prototyping. And this is where the conversation started, right? Like when you're prototyping for alignment, you want to be able to create 3 or 4 throwaway, very early, quick prototypes based on your team discussions, based on your ideas, based on whatever you've sort of highlighted up here in your prioritization matrix. So there's a couple of ways. We just recently launched Miro prototypes, and here's 2 things I'm seeing teams do over and over again with Miro prototypes. The first thing, if a team, let's say you have a team that's working on an existing product and just iterating it, I see a lot of them take screenshots of their products. So this is just a screenshot of a peer-to-peer money transfer app, and use AI to convert that image into a prototype. And what's more up-to-date than your actual product? But I've also seen people do this with their vibe-coded apps, right? Like they'll just take a screenshot of the vibe-coded app, put it in Miro, convert that into an editable prototype. And not everyone's an engineer, right? So once it's an editable prototype, now you can see it looks pretty similar. But now I can my team can come in, they can start to edit it, they can start to leave feedback on it, I can add a button, and so on and so forth. So you can do this with multiple screenshots, and it's all editable, right? I can edit the whole thing, I can add icons and whatnot, right? Like little toggles. So teams have been doing that, and it's really easy, it's really accessible. Your marketer can do it, your analyst can do it, everyone can be in the same board, and create a few different ideas of what's in their head. But there is also generative prototyping in Miro. So I want to show you how you can do that. Remember visual, when I talked about using the canvas as a context, that's also applies to prototypes. And any of you that have vibe coded or built prototypes with AI, you have to write really long prompts, really, really, really long prompts, to the point that you might as well just have done the whole thing yourself. So you'll see my prompt here. It's pretty short. I just ask AI to create me a prototype with 3 screens, a login screen, transaction history, and a screen where I can send money to my contacts. That's all I'm going to put in my prompt here. So I'm going to open up my AI panel. I'm going to ask it to build me a prototype. And that's my short prompt. But along with that, I can do a few things. I can select the user flow diagram. And now it knows all the buttons and links and all the pathways for my product. I can select the product requirements document that I had written up and synthesized earlier. And I might even add, let's say, the key user problem that we had decided we're going to solve. and it says 45 objects selected, it's kind of going to take all of those things into consideration. I might even add a screenshot of the visual style I want it to be in. In this case, I might say, make it look like Spotify in dark mode. I'm not going to zoom into my Spotify screenshot in case you guys judge my music taste. But I might just do that, and I might say 3 screens, use the screenshot as for design, for visual design help. All right, so I'm gonna just say that. It's gonna run, it usually takes 2.5 minutes. I've done this demo so many times, I know it will take 2.5 minutes. So like cooking shows, I did actually create a prototype earlier this morning. So we're gonna let that generate, but while that's generating, I'll show you what it would have generated. So I didn't select Spotify when I did it this morning, but it gave me this kind of prototype. It gave me a login screen, a transaction history screen, a way to send money. Again, all of this is editable. If I want to change the icon, I can go ahead and make it a settings icon. I can go ahead and preview, and it starts to kind of be something you can interact with and move around. But it's all in Miro. It's all a pretty basic wireframey prototype in Miro that my team can come in and co-edit with me. And when I run hackathons with our customers, I see usually every board has 3 or 4 different prototypes. So it's pretty easy for people to try different prototypes. All right, so I'm gonna wait for that. We're gonna see if that generates. Once I do have a prototype, and let's say I've had my team edit it, and I'm like, oh, that looks good. I remember I talked about crits. You get feedback from your team, but what if you don't have a very critical role available? For me, that's accessibility. I never, there's only one person in our company that is an expert at accessibility, and they're never available. They're so busy. So what I have created, and this is in beta, in my Miro account, is an accessibility sidekick. And I'm gonna, I might stop that one. And so I have an accessibility sidekick. And what I can do with that sidekick is select my prototype and ask it to give me the top 10 accessibility issues with my prototype. And again, I can code I've coded the sidekick on our accessibility guidelines. I want the results in a table. I'm gonna hit go. It's gonna give me recommendations. And when I made this sidekick here, I can create my own, and I've created it based on our guidelines, but you can sort of link it to your company's knowledge. I have one that can read all our research reports and give me feedback on my ideas. And I also have one that mimics our CEO. So I can just ask it, what would Andre say about my ideas or my presentation? So here, this is the accessibility sidekick trying to give me recommendations. And we're gonna hang tight. Again, these things take a minute or two. So I did create one this morning as well. And this is kind of the types of results it gives you. Oh, there you go. That's pretty quick. So it gave me sort of, for each screen, which component has a problem, what the problem is, and what the recommendation is. I could also ask my sidekick then to apply these recommendations to my prototype. It would spit out a different prototype with these. Anyway, all of this is great, but we do want to get to our little vibe-coded prototype at the end. The idea here is you can do a lot more quick iterations in Miro, and eventually, and I'm going to just show a video just because the vibe coding tool does take 20-ish minutes to build things, but we have also launched our MCP in beta. Is the last thing I'm going to show you. So you can actually take stuff. You can connect with Miro in both ways. So you can go from your IDE, your coding environment, and create in Miro, let's say a diagram of your current architecture. So in this case, it's going to read your code and create a diagram in Miro. And then you can like go ahead and edit it or add your PRD or your wireframes or your prototype and take the link of the Miro board, send it back to your IDE and just say, hey, make this prototype. It's going to be able to read the product requirements document and the prototype and spit out, your coded prototype. I've actually seen engineers like take their vibe coded prototype, bring it to Miro, edit it, and bring it back to their coding tool. So just wanted to end there with all the things that we're doing here at Miro that I'm seeing people use quite a bit. And we can do Q&A, but I wanted to actually ask you all if you wouldn't mind answering a question for me. I just have like a quick question for the group here. So you can scan the QR code. If you want to go, you can go to miro.com/join 785HY6, and I have the QR code here as well. So what is one thing that you want to try, or is there anything in the conversation that like sticks with you where you're like, oh yeah, that's something that I could change in my own process? That would be really interesting for me to hear. And you can keep typing. I don't know, Cyril, if we have time for Q&A or if you want to
Yes, we definitely do.
facilitate that.
Cool. Thanks, Shipra. Great demo. Do we have question for Shipra? Yes, in the back.
Hi there, Shikra. Thank you for that demonstration. That was lovely. Soon I'll be hosting an office hours where we're basically, our clients will be asking us questions. And I think we've all probably attended an office hours before, and we often spend a lot of time answering just a few of the questions, and we don't get to everybody's question. So it's got me thinking, is there a way that we could maybe poll questions, bring them into a Miro board, and auto-categorize them like you demonstrated, and then answer maybe the questions from the largest group?
Totally. I mean, can I just show it right here? So you can do this. What I just did here, there's a QR code. People are able to answer the question. And I'm going to pause this. Sorry if anyone's trying to write. But yeah, I mean, that is completely like a use case for Miro. Like people don't press that unmute button and voice their answers. So here you can have a QR code, get people to write in their questions, and now I can export these questions, the answers into stickies. So I just like, that was too quick, I'll show you again. People in the room wrote these things. I can export them into stickies and then go ahead and cluster them by keywords. And then you have your topics. And then I could even bring in, my team is right here. I could even start a voting session and have people upvote the questions that they think are most important. Let me do that. And then these are like really great ways to facilitate, if the internet works, really like quick ways to facilitate, yeah, there you go. To facilitate like Q&A that's more democratic. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. Now you know. Any other questions?
Yeah, great demo. I was curious, for a team that's already kind of integrated into using Figma and Figma Make for generative prototyping, how could we lure them over to using Miro? What are the advantages? Yeah.
I find, so I'm an engineer turned designer. I use Figma for designing all the time. I find Miro useful in the super early stages. And we do have actually a deep integration with Figma as well. So For those early stages, we find like if you're trying to involve people like marketers or business analysts or strategists, they find Figma intimidating. So bringing them into Miro in a safe environment feels better. And then once you move on to the later stages of the project, we do have a deep integration with Figma. I'm happy to show you actually offline, but you can do all of those AI things on the Figma integration as well. So I could bring in a Figma asset and ask AI to generate 10 user stories and then co-edit that with my engineers. So Miro has a deep integration.
I had a question here. Thanks so much. It's really a great discussion. How much context does Miro have about code for your application, if any? So can you go back and forth between a prototype, code, change it, come back, or is that just a pie in the sky dream?
Yeah, I mean, I think so right now the connection is an MCP. So that's like you kind of have to go back and forth and you have to bring in your coding environment's information into Miro and then take Miro URL, bring it back to the coding environment. For a deeper connection, like I'd love to hear your use case because we'd like to experiment. So if you have a use case that you're thinking of, I'd love to, maybe we can chat afterwards.
All right.
But yeah, right now it's an MCP connection.
So you have to build an MCP server that'll then talk to your code. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, we already have the MCP. I mean, it's in beta, but we already have the MCP server. So it'll talk to the code back and forth.
Okay,
Yeah.
good stuff. Thanks.
Yeah.
Just building on his question, does Miro support MCPs itself? So can I connect my MCP to Miro to bring in data from code or something else into Miro?
Yeah. So if I understand your question right, yes. So you can, like for instance, use the MCP to ask Miro to create an architectural diagram of your code, right? So it can like read the code and create the diagram.
Okay.
For
cool.
instance, in a Miro board. So it's bidirectional.
But can I configure Miro to connect to some other MCP, not the Miro MCP, but some other MCP?
I don't know, Brad, do you know?
It is possible, but you might run into limitations in what's available in public APIs, where the Miro MCP server can use a bit more than what's available publicly. So I had that question from a few customers, and theoretically it's possible, like you can build custom apps on Miro using our DevDocs and materials, but you might find that what you can do with that MCP server might not be as broad as what you can do with the Miro MCP server.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Last question.
Just wanted a great presentation. On going back to kind of the design, if you kind of Frankensteined some of your design work by component, could it then kind of gather all those components, partly from like a design system, partly from, let's say, a competitor, and then have it kind of generate something?
Yeah. So so we get that question about design systems quite a bit. There's like a plethora of hacks, but like the best hack that you can use today is just take a screenshot of your design system and put it in, and it'll try and replicate those components. But I will say Miro is not, I assume you're talking about Figma, like it's not meant to be a pixel perfect, like Figma is really good for that. And also like the UI is pretty complicated for non-designers. So I would say there are two different use cases, whereas a Miro prototype is gonna be like much quicker, scrappier, and it can look good enough, look enough like your Figma. So that's what I would do today is just take a screenshot of my design system, and then eventually we want to be able to make that more automated where we can read your design systems, and so you don't have to hack.
All right, that was our last question for you, Shipra. Thank you so much. Let's give Shipra a round of applause. She'll be available at the booth over there if you have more questions. Great presentation. Next, it's gonna be Hendrik.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah, I think this one works. Perfect. Good, thank you. All right, so switching gears, I guess. Well, like once you've done your prototype, now you've built your prototype, you've been coding a little bit, and now you want to take it to production. That's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, and how context engineering plays a role in that. But before I start doing that, maybe a quick show of hands. Who of you touches code every day? Okay, cool. Who of you has heard about CodeRabbit before? Okay, not so many people. Who of you has used CodeRabbit before? Perfect, that's great, that's awesome. So I got an open playing field here. All right, so then it's actually not too bad if I think set the ground level a little bit here, because just to like seed the conversation, the search of AI, and generating code has been really like a wave that's been taking off. I think all of us are feeling that today, but there's actually also numbers who back that up. So today, for example, GitHub Copilot claims that they have 15 million users on their product. Cursor, you probably heard about, claims that they produce 1 billion lines of code every single day. And even big companies like Microsoft and Google are stating publicly that 20 to 30% of their code is AI generated, and then it's going to be 15% in the near future as well. And then, of course, you have companies like Y Combinator saying that 1/4 of their startups are basically generating all the code in their apps, which means that none of their engineers have any idea of what's going on in their code, which, I don't know, maybe I believe that. So what does that mean? It means that there's code written much, much faster than it can actually be reviewed. And we can see that as well if you look, for example, at the numbers it takes from the moment you assign a feature until the moment you open a PR, a pull request. That time has gone down dramatically. It's now from 10 to 2 days. And also then logically correlated to that, the number of pull requests like being opened has risen by 30%. But also the number of bugs. I mean, many people know that, right? AI generated code is not perfect. And also even in like Copilot studies, many of those code snippets showed security vulnerabilities, which are quite serious. So all of that to say that the traditional CI/CD pipeline that we know as engineers has a new bottleneck. So traditionally, it took us quite some time to develop a feature, maybe develop like an application, could be weeks. Now we can do that much, much faster, even in days or sometimes hours, right? But then the next process that comes, automating the code, opening the pull request, having other people review that code, that becomes the new bottleneck, and it's become much, much more severe than it used to be before. So all to say then, if you haven't heard about CodeRabbit before, this is kind of where we fit in. So you have your code generation tools that you've used and that you're familiar with, your VS Code, your VS Code fork if you use Cursor or Windsurf or Claude Code. And then you have another part, which is the central quality check that normally happens in like GitHub, GitLab, and so on. And that's where CodeRabbit fits in. That's really what we specialized in. And that's also where context engineering becomes very, very important. And I think that's where we truly excel. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. I want to do this. I'm going to try something new today. I'm going to do a live demo while I talk about the tech as well. So let me do that actually. I figured that maybe it's cool if I show you how CodeRabbit works right into where it's most useful. We really engineered this product to be your true assistant, your true pair programmer, so to say. So I'm going to show you what it looks like to open up a PR and have it being reviewed by CodeRabbit Live. So I built this small DIY Finder app here that's like a hobby project of mine, and I built some code smells in there for demonstration purposes. So here I'm going to show you how I fixed one of them, which is like an SQL injection prompt that you can enter there. And in this case, I'm just going to open up that PR here, and I'm going to actually, I also got a ticket, an issue that I linked to that, which is this one here. Where I describe basically what's been going on, and like somebody has found that issue in my application, and then now they're reporting it to me, and I want to fix it with AI. So I fixed it with AI, and now I want CodeRabbit to review the code. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say like, hey, oops, fixing the. I'm going to say close this, and then that's number, I think it was 27. There we go. There we go. And then just for the fun of it, I'm also going to link another random ticket. Let's go with, why not this? So I'm going to press create pull request here, and now we can see how CodeRabbit basically gets to work in just a second. And there we go. In the chat, we got it working here. In a second, we'll see a little poem. There we go. All right, so let's jump back. While it does that, I'm going to explain you what is actually going on in the back here. So this is what it looks like when CodeRabbit is actually opening up, or when you open up a pull request on a repository where CodeRabbit is installed on. So the first thing we do, and this is why our analysis is really, really thorough, and all of this will lead to context engineering, which is in the center of all of this, as you see, is we clone your repository into a sandbox. And that's really important because that allows us to run a bunch of static analysis tools. Those tools that many of you who are engineering probably already are familiar with. We're using those tools to generate this entire context view. So basically building a code graph that allows us to look beyond just simple, shallow fixes, but truly understand root cause issues like race conditions, security vulnerabilities, and that type of stuff. And the way that looks is really in that first paragraph that I showed you here. So the context engineering is happening out of a merger of all these static analysis tools, as well as the knowledge that we have about your previous coding experiences. So basically analyzing different type of abstract syntax tree grab rules, if you have heard about those before, running a bunch of linters, as well as SAS tools that you traditionally run, all of that in combination with an agentic workflow that basically analyzes the priority as well as the relevance of these linters and of these error flags to then give you a more refined review. The other great part about CodeRabbit is as well is that we have an MCP server that connects to anything that has to do with your internal knowledge base inside of the company. So you're similar to what we refer at Miro, your Notion pages and other parts where you have information that might be valuable for that PR as well as your ticketing systems, right? And that's why we also saw in that previous PR that I just opened, I'm linking those to give more information to. And that's really what it takes to build, as we call it, an harness around a large language model, because we know those are naturally prone to hallucinate a fair bit. And then basically build the exact guardrails that we want to give a quality review that is not too noisy, but as exactly those most critical errors flagged to you that ultimately will excel your code production. Yeah, jumping back, I think, about those issues that I already talked about. So that's basically a quick overview of the knowledge base that we use. There's two things that are, I think, quite cool about CodeRabbit is that we're not only using an index about your past issues that you created, but you can obviously add your own agentic learnings via the chat interface that we have, and I'll talk about that in a second as well. So all of that really comes together to build the context as it stands in CodeRabbit, and then we use that for the review agent to basically flag all the issues that we find in your code. And we'll see, normally we find quite a lot. We can look into the demo in just a second. And then we have parallel review verification agents. That means is that normally, especially with AI-generated code, there are a lot of issues that are being flagged, especially if you run a very thorough analysis. But not all of those are necessarily super relevant, or might even be a little bit noisy or just opinionated, really. So we have review and verification agents that basically then decide which of those issues they will flag to you, and which of those are just going to be mentioned as nitpicky comments. And that's the ultimate output that you see. So that's leading back to my first diagram that I showed at the start. We will basically enrich the context, and then we'll be able to interface with our agentic chat interface, which is the main product that we use in your PR. So you'll be able to have a conversation with CodeRabbit about the changes that it suggested to your code, ask it to create new issues, ask it to create new learnings, as well as pull in extra context from either your internal knowledge base as well as from the internet via the web query interface. All of that to say that I think this is, at least from our opinion, the most powerful sense of context engineering. And let's maybe have a look and see what it output for my PR here. So here we go. Okay, seems like it's still running a minute. Sometimes these things take a bit. I, fortunately, of course, knowing that the demo gods are sometimes not on my side, I did the same PR just before. So this is the exact same code that was changed. We're just going through it piece by piece. So you see the issues that are tagged up here on the top. And you can see that CodeRabbit actually added a small summary on the top just to enhance a little bit of the poor documentation that I've added to this PR here. And then you can see CodeRabbit kind of starts with a nice walkthrough, basically introduce the technical or the mental overload that you normally have when you look at somebody else's code to just highlight a little bit of the more critical issues that you normally see. And then it produces a sequence diagram, which is quite nice, as most of our people are visual by nature. We don't like to read too much. It's kind of good to understand, and we can see here as well, gives you a good visualization about the changes here. We can see that in this case, because it was a prompt injection vulnerability, you can see how the new implementation is basically sanitizing the queries as they come in from the chat interface. So that already, without you ever seeing a single line of code, gives you a very quick idea about what is actually going on in that PR and why that change is relevant and what could be flagged here. Then CodeRabbit basically gives you a little bit more of an overview of the complexity of this PR. So you can get an estimate of how much time you're supposed to spend on reviewing this. And then here we get back into that, closing the loop onto context engineering and really pulling in the relevant information. We have a pre-merge checklist that we have here where it's basically flagging me the most important issues. In this case, it's telling me that one of the tickets that I've added here is addressed, which was the 25 ticket about the prompt injection. And then the other one that I just added randomly actually doesn't have anything to do with the code review at all. So this is not an issue in my code. This is just CodeRabbit telling me, hey, your code, does not fix whatever you claim it to fix. So that's kind of handy as well. Okay, moving on. We do have some, as I told you, some finishing touches. We can generate doc strings. We got a couple other, and then the issue review itself is really meant to be centered like a human reviewer would. So just like a normal human would enter comments in your code, you can see those entered by CodeRabbit as well. The great thing is you can have then the conversation, like I saw before as well, with CodeRabbit. So for example, we can say here, this is not an issue. We will fix here. Please open a separate GitHub issue. Click on comment, and CodeRabbit will basically take that instruction, and then shortly after we will see a new issue opened. The same goes for the learning step. We also have committable suggestions. So basically, if CodeRabbit, for example, like here, finds a smaller issue that can be fixed easily, you can have one clickable commit suggestion. And lastly, the thing that I talked about before as well is you can have a conversation with CodeRabbit to, for example, remember. Oh, that was not the one that I was looking for. Remember certain things. So for example, if you have a logging or another tradition that you just generally use that CodeRabbit has flagged, we can add that as a learning, and CodeRabbit will remember that for the next time it reviews the same repository again. Okay, so I think that's the main part, what I had about here in terms of CodeRabbit. I'm going to do a little pitch for the product. After all, it is quite popular. We have an open source free tier that you can use and try out. We've been reviewing a lot of things, a lot of pull requests over the last 2 years, but we'll be happy to also take your feedback if you try it out. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
All right. Yes. Nice demo. Oh, first question.
Yeah, hi there. Question about the security implications regarding intellectual property. So when you clone the repo, how is that, where does it get cloned to, and how do you treat that code? And then the second aspect is, do you use any of your customers' code to train or fine-tune LLMs?
Yeah, so I understood the last question good. You said, do we use any of the data to train the code? And then the first one, could you repeat?
The first one is in the flow, you create you clone the repo, right? So the first step, clone repo. So where does that repo, the cloned repo, live, and what are the security parameters around that? So in GitHub, like if you have intellectual property, right, specific code, and now that's leaving and getting cloned somewhere else, what are the security implications around that?
Yeah. So basically, CodeRabbit has we're SOC 2 compliant as a company, and we have a zero-day data retention policy. So none of the data is used for model training from all the security labs. In terms of the sandbox, I have to say I'm over. I think it's AWS, but don't quote me on that. GCP, okay. And then of course, as we said, no data retention. As soon as the sandbox instance is established, we wipe it out again. Yeah, we wouldn't. Otherwise, we also wouldn't be able to basically maintain our pricing, because at this point we've scanned, as I showed in the slides before, about like 13 million PRs. So if we would retain any of that information, we'd have a huge server bill. Yeah. All right. Cool.
More questions?
Okay.
I have a question. The thing with AI is it seems like there is always a new recommendation, right? Like I feel like if AI is reviewing the code, it will always find something to change. How do you make this process not endless, right? Like so at some point, the review is good enough, I would say.
Yeah, that's right. So CodeRabbit has different settings. So it does help you to configure that. We have this thing, we call it a code, it's just a CodeRabbit.yaml that basically lets you set a bunch of different settings. You can set it to assertive, you can set it to a more chill approach, and that means then the review agents, the validation agents, that's basically a threshold for them to set whether they also flag nitpicky comments to you or just focus on really actionable ones. And you can see that in that review, for example, here as well. You can see that we have, okay, this one is a large demo review that I have, but we have a list of actionable comments, which in this case are quite a few, because that's a demo one. But then, for example, if you look for a smaller PR that I published, let's have a look here. Yep, you can see that the list actually shrinks to about just one post, depending on what the setting is. So in the previous one you saw, I got an assertive review for a larger code base. That's a lot of comments. For a chill review, smaller code base then will tell you, okay, this is the most critical one. The other ones are more like maybe style, also maintainability, that type of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Chill is cool.
All right, cool.
Sometimes.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and next we're going to have Kevin.
Give me 1 second. All right, perfect. All right, hello everyone. My name is Kevin. I am the head of developer relations at Descope. We are a customer identity and access management platform, and basically what we help you do is help you build auth for your web apps, your mobile apps, and more recently, like your MCP servers and AI agents. And so today what I'm going to be talking about is basically some of the best practices that you can employ to protect any AI agent that you're building, or more specifically an MCP server. But first, I'll just kind of give a little bit of background of why we are trying to solve this problem and why this problem exists, and a little bit of background on, or a little bit of some numbers on what the MCP server kind of deployment looks like in an enterprise setting today. There are like thousands of MCP servers out there. I'm sure almost all of you have used or at least are familiar with MCP servers. Particularly the MCP servers that exist out in the open source, but even ones that are kind of already deployed by big companies like Notion and Linear and things like that. Typically, have a kind of very simple authentication experience and not a lot of kind of complicated or granular authorization built into it. And what a lot of developers in large companies are trying to do is they're trying to use these MCP servers to actually provide additional context to their agents to do things either through their own internal APIs and such and things like that. And so through the numbers here, you can see that most MCP servers that are developed today have no built-in security, and very few actually end up getting deployed. And a big reason for that is because adding authentication and adding authorization to your MCP server can be quite challenging. You have to basically manage consent. You have to have an OAuth 2.1 compliant provider. You have to implement things like dynamic client registration, which most software engineers don't even know what that is. Have to basically figure out how to issue tokens, manage tokens. It's a lot of security stuff that, frankly, a lot of engineers just don't really want to be bothered to build and don't want to have to learn how to build. And so this is a very common challenge with deploying and building MCP servers today. And the way you can kind of think about how you secure an MCP server is with these kind of multiple layers. The first is basically being able to actually deploy a remote server, be able to monitor and audit which agents are connecting to that server, which agents are asking for which permissions to which tools, things like that. This is something that's kind of a non-negotiable starting point for a lot of kind of enterprise CISOs and things like that. The next is adding that kind of basic layer of authentication, which, as I mentioned, which is very common in the commonly used MCP servers out on the world today. The ones that you might use, like Linear, for example. You connect to it through Claude, you go through a simple login process that gives you a little consent screen that says you're consenting to this MCP server. That's like the second layer. So it's a little bit easier to add that. There are a lot of platforms out there, not just us, that make it very easy for you to add that to your MCP server. But where it really gets complicated is the final two layers, is the third being authorization. So not just authenticating into an MCP server saying, I want to access this MCP server, but actually being able to define what tools, what scopes your agent or your MCP client like Claude Desktop and stuff can access. So this is, things like, for example, if I want to connect to an MCP server that can go out and schedule calendar events for myself, which I'll actually show in a demo here. If I want Claude to be able to just read my calendar and understand what events I already have in my calendar, be able to answer questions based on that, versus actually being able to go out and schedule a calendar invite and send emails to people and things like that. Those are two different sets of permissions. So you have to define what those actually are, which a lot of engineers today don't actually have a real good kind of blueprint or framework on how to actually do that. And so a lot of times it just doesn't even happen. And then finally, the last is governance. So this is an administrator actually stepping in and saying, even if an end user says they can have an agent. Oh, sorry. Let's see if that's Even if an MCP or even if an enterprise administrator even if a user wants to be able to say, no, this agent can go out and schedule calendar invites, with this agent or whatever. An administrator can say, no, this person with this particular role, with this particular set of licensing or subscription or permissions cannot actually let its agent do that. So those two final pieces are what we at Dscope are trying to make very easy for you to implement in your own MCP servers. So now I'll talk a little bit about what we actually do as a product, and then I'll show you a demo of how we actually go out and do that. So when we talk about our agentic identity offering, we call it the Agentic Identity Hub, and there's three kind of main bullet points of use cases for this product. The first is we want to make it really easy for you to actually expose all of your existing APIs, everything that exists within your product, to an AI agent through an MCP server, and be able to provide that third layer that I talked about before, which is be able to actually define and give consented access to specific scopes, specific tools, and specific APIs. The next is from an AI agent builder perspective. If you're building an AI agent, you actually might need to connect to multiple MCP servers. You might need to connect out to multiple services like Google Calendar, HubSpot, all of these kind of platforms, GitHub. And every time you do that, the user needs to actually provide consent, and there's a token involved. So we will actually go out and manage all of those user tokens for you. We manage organizational level tokens, and we can provide a policy that makes it very easy for you as an administrator to tell all of your internal employees, everyone that you control, basically everyone that you want to manage, what their agents can and cannot have access to. So those are the kind of three main use cases that we do. The kind of starting point for that is being able to give you a full-fledged OAuth provider. So this is something that I'm sure most people have seen before or have interacted with. It's when you connect to any MCP server that's a remote server, you'll see that consent screen, you'll see that kind of basic login process. We make it very easy with a drag and drop workflow for you to customize and build that and insert it into your MCP servers. So that's the first thing that we do, and we call that our inbound apps. The next is our outbound apps. This is where we allow you to connect to all the external services that you would want to connect to, things like, as I mentioned, YouTube, Zoom, Google Calendar, things like that. So we basically will allow you to connect to those tools. We'll actually manage the tokens and refresh them for you, and we'll allow you to provide a policy to actually control access to those tokens. And what you end up with is you end up with this kind of identity control plane in the middle, where the inbound app is the token issuer and the manager for authorization and authentication between the AI agent and your MCP servers and services you're trying to connect to. The outbound apps are actually managing all the tokens for those services, and the policy engine is running in the middle, basically making the whole thing kind of work together. Cool. So now I'm just going to show you a demo. I'm actually going to show you a really easy way for you at home to spin up an MCP server with authentication and be able to do all the things that I was basically just mentioning. So let's do that. So first things first, in our Dscope console here, and by the way, this is, anyone who wants to do this at home can just go to dscope.com/sign up, get access to our full platform. There's no credit card or anything that's needed. And you can see this exact page that I'm looking at or that I'm showing you right now. And the first kind of starting point to all of this is I want to build an MCP server that can schedule calendar invites for me, but also read from my calendar and allow me to ask questions about it. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this inbound app section and enable DCR, Dynamic Client Registration. This will allow you to basically have any agent in the world connect and register themselves with your MCP server, and it allows you to define what tools you have in your MCP server. So in this case, I have a few simple tools. The ones that are actually important for this demo are calendar read and calendar write. So I'm just going to basically define the name here. I'm going to define a description. This will be shown to the end user. So this will be shown to me when I sign into my MCP server so that the user me actually knows what I'm giving access to. And then a few other things which, you can follow our docs. It's pretty straightforward. But what you end up with is you end up with this backend it's basically a URL that you plop into your MCP server through FastMCP, through Vercel MCP handler. We have many, many integrations. At that point, your MCP server is basically fully protected with our OAuth provider. And one of the great things about Dscope is we actually give you this no-code drag and drop workflow. So you can actually define exactly what the authentication process looks like for your end users. And this could be everything from the actual login screen itself. So this is what the user will see when they sign in your MCP server. If I want to add sign in with Facebook, it's as easy as basically dragging in this, clicking save. It's automatically hosted by us. You don't have to deploy anything. We can add SSO. You want to add basically a simple kind of condition that says if this user has SSO, go to their Okta or Azure, something like that. And then we can have conditions for consent. So is consent already granted? If consent isn't, go to this consent screen. Everything here can be styled and customized exactly how you want. This is just a demo, but you can see how those kind of screens that you've probably interacted with that you never really thought about before, they can all be defined here. And this is what you actually need to do if you want to actually build that security into your MCP servers. So we have all of these kind of components here. We have a few few screens that'll let me, offer up an API key or connect to Google. I'll show you how those all work in a second. But this is a really kind of nice way to actually architect out how the auth works with this no-code workflow here. Now, the next part is going to our outbound apps. So after we've configured our inbound apps, it's as simple as that. We now have auth for our MCP server. Now I want to connect Google Calendar, for example. So now what I'll do is I will add Google Calendar, and we have lots of different templates right out of the box. We have like over 50 that you can choose from here, and we have generic ones as well. So if you want to connect to any other auth provider, you can do that. But here I have Google Calendar already set up. And the great thing about this is you can see that I can just plop in my client ID and secret. This is my Google OAuth app credentials. And then I can see all of the tokens that are being managed. So this is an MCP server that I have out in the world right now. Anybody can connect to it. And these are the users that have signed into my MCP server with the scopes that they've granted consent for. I can revoke that consent. I can see the tokens. They will automatically be refreshed. So all of this kind of OAuth like stuff that people don't really want to worry about is all managed through our platform. And the coolest thing about it is the access control policy. So I'll show you this when I connect in Claude Desktop. I'll show you how this all materializes. But what I have here is a very simple policy that says any agent or MCP client that connects to my server, if the user that signs in with that MCP server has a viewer role, it can only view calendar invites, or sorry, view calendar events. So it cannot actually go out and schedule. I have not given the Google Calendar scope, I have not given that permission to a user with a role with viewer. And if I look at this other policy here, which is a scheduler role, if they have a scheduler role, then they are allowed all scopes. So they can do whatever they want with Google Calendar. So it's a very, very simple policy. You can create as many as you want, and they exist on each one of those outbound apps. So now what I will show is I will go to Claude Desktop, and I will connect to Dscope Demo. So this is my Dscope MCP server. And if you're noticing here, this is the flow that I was showing you earlier. So this is the actual screen. And you can see here, I didn't deploy any new code. Sign in with Facebook appeared automatically because I added it to the flow and saved it. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in with Google. And then it's showing this consent screen. So this is something that, again, you probably have seen if you've used an MCP server before or just signed into some platform where you needed to kind of like give consent. And you can see here, there's some interesting things we can do at Dscope. Like with Dscope, you can set which scopes are optional versus mandatory. In this case, this is optional. So I can say like, I don't want to give the agent access to my HubSpot data if I don't want. But I'll just show you, this is all kind of for demo purposes, but the ones that are important here are being able to both read and write from Google Calendar. So I'm going to say authorize, and then HubSpot, we won't worry about that. I'll skip that for now. This is customizable. You're probably wondering, why am I signing in again? Well, I'm signing in again because I'm not trying at this point to just sign in as a user. I'm trying to actually give my agent or MCP client consent to actually access my calendar. So this is not something that I would do every time I log in. I'm showing this as the demo, but this is where a lot of that magic happens there's an association between permissions, between Google Calendar, between HubSpot, everything, and what we already control with our inbound apps. So I'll go ahead and click allow. And then hopefully Claude doesn't let me down. And I'm configured, or I'm connected to my MCP server here. So now, if I go to new chat, and let's actually look at my user. So let's go to, I'll go to here. And then I will go to my users. And it looks like I'm a viewer role. So let's do this. So let's first make myself a scheduler. So I'll make myself a scheduler. This could be something automatically kind of sent from like Skim or something from an SSO provider. This could be an attribute that you change, or these attributes can even be updated with a webhook from your own APIs, things like that. So this is just a very simple example, but I'll set it as scheduler, and then I'll go into here and I'll say schedule a meeting invite with r@dscope.com for 5:40 p.m. PST tomorrow. We'll go ahead and ask that. Oh, my computer's about to die. Perfect timing. Okay, so recognize my create calendar event scope. Oh, it looks, okay, great. So it recognized my MCP server. It recognized that I'm trying to create a calendar event, so it called that tool. And you can see here, if I click on this link, it actually went out and scheduled that calendar event in Google Calendar. So very simple use case. But now what I'm going to show you is not deploying any new code, not changing my MCP server in any way, but simply changing this role to viewer. Now, you would expect then that Claude should not be able to schedule that calendar invite if I ask the same exact prompt. And this could be a scenario where, if you're building within an enterprise an MCP server and somebody leaves the company, or somebody gets their permissions demoted or something like that, an administrator could simply go in here, just like they would with other kind of security tools, and be able to just flip a switch and turn off the user's ability to actually schedule that invite. And then I will go ahead and just literally copy this exact prompt. We'll start a new chat. And we'll see what happens. So it should recognize the tool, and then see what it says. There is a permissions issue accessing Google Calendar. So that is basically, in a sense, what we are doing. We are giving you a way to add auth to your MCP server, giving you a place to manage all the tokens and all of the basically connections to those external services like Google Calendar, and giving you a way to enforce who has access to what within your MCP server without you having to redeploy any code. That is, so that's basically what Dscope does. I think I have a little bit of time, so I'll just show you guys. If you guys want to try this out at home, I would highly encourage you to, if you guys have built any MCP servers at all in the past, I'm sure you guys are familiar with things like FastMCP. We have a FastMCP kind of native provider, which you can use. We also have this template in Vercel out of the box, which is really nice because Vercel also hosts the MCP server. So if you guys want to build an MCP server just for fun, play around with it, you can literally go to this template here, click deploy, and you can literally just with one click drop in a project ID with Dscope, and you're off to the races and have an MCP server with auth. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Do we have questions for Kevin? Questions? No? Yes.
Your product is crossing several boundaries. So you have different type of problems that you're solving across authentication to MCP, access control, all of that stuff. So what are those categories that you think of yourself as a company? Like, what are those categories that you're really trying to nail?
That I think of ourselves as a competitor, you mean?
No, like what's your core, the thing that you do the best? Is it authentication? Is it integration? Is it access control? Or maybe the answer is, look, we do all three, but
Yeah, so I think the way our product is set up first, we traditionally were a customer identity and access management, a CIAM company. So we focus a lot on the authentication piece particularly. That's, I think, one of the ways, with our drag and drop flows that you've seen here, one of the ways we really stand out from a lot of our competitors because we made just building authentication extremely easy for a developer. Where I think we are heading, and where at least, compared to a lot of our competitors today, I think where we really kind of shine and have key differentiating factors is the authorization side. Because other than a few kind of small startups, there aren't any real kind of competitors that are also CIAM platforms like ours that give that control, give that granular control for authorization for tools and things like that we do. So I would say that's going forward going to be our biggest kind of advantage as a company. But I'd say as far as the product works today, and all of the different things that we offer in the product, from being able to connect the third-party services and things within the actual flow itself, being able to define from a multi-tenancy standpoint, organizations with their own SSO configuration, these are all things that are just kind of the foundation of what you need to build the platform that we're trying to build, which is effectively an identity provider for agents, right? That's basically what we're trying to do. We have a lot, I think we as a company are very proud of the product that we have today, and that we've kind of found an extension, a natural extension of that for agents.
Thank you. More questions? No? Okay, so I think we're good. Kevin, thank you. Yeah, let's give Kevin a round of applause. Kevin also has a booth over there, so if you have more questions, feel free to go and talk directly to him. Now, let's see. Okay, so now it's a time where you can come and join me if you have anything to present. I give you a minute and you can present to the community. If you are looking for a job, if you are hiring, working on something cool. Yes, come. You can come here and just line up. If we are not too many, everyone will have a chance. Yeah, you can start.
Thank you. Thanks for the great presentation. My name is Sasha. I'm one of the founders at LinkUp. We're a web search API. So basically providing web search to AI agents, AI applications. So for CodeRabbit, basically, you saw there was a web search node. We're basically doing this. We have some small competitors in the US like Perplexity and Exa and Parallel Web Systems that just announced they raised 100 million today. But we're based in France. We're actually, weirdly enough, we have better results than them and we're cheaper. And we're just closed our seed round and opening an office in the US. So if you're using one of them, give us a try because I'm pretty sure we can get you better results at a cheaper price. And we also we build dedicated web indexes for vertical applications and things like this. So lots of exciting stuff. And we're also recruiting in the US for go-to-market roles. So DevRel, go-to-market marketing, and FD. So yeah, if you're doing this, happy to speak.
Oh. Yeah, French companies are usually a good deal, so check them out.
Hey everyone, my name is Kareem and I'm the founder of Playscape. It's a gaming CLI tool. Imagine Claude Code, but has the ability to generate 3D assets, rig them, animate them, make music. And it's out. You can just go to playscape.gg/CLI. And this weekend, we're hosting a neurodivergent hackathon, and we're having a cash prize to who makes the most neurodivergent, physical, disability-friendly game. So think nice. Blind, impaired, deaf, and neurodivergent-friendly games.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, you were singing. Where is it?
Oh, where is it? It's going to be in San Francisco this Saturday. And if you come to talk to me if you want a link to it.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Anyone else? Are we done? Well, we are a little bit early. Pizzas are not here yet, but they are coming. Okay, they are on their way. So you can just go in the back and we have some drinks and just be patient. Pizza will be here. At least they're going to be hot, so that's a good thing. Okay, thank you all, and I see you next time.